All right, what is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode podcast real estate tip. And today I'm here to break down with you what I believe, in my own personal opinion and my own personal experience with my own real estate business, with my own real estate team, along with my coaching clients, what I'm seeing. And again, this is just my opinion, my own belief, but what I believe to be the greatest niche to grow your overall real estate business here in 2024. And there are multiple reasons why I love this niche. Number one, it's an amazing way to go out there and stack listings right now. So if you are a real estate agent that wants to grow your listing count massively, this is one of the highest, if not the highest converting niche that I'm seeing right now to go out there and stack listings. In addition to that, this is also a great niche to go out there and gain buyers and stack buyers from. So I'm getting listings from this niche. At the same time, I'm getting buyers from this niche. So it's like a win-win. So when I'm doing my reach outs, when I'm having conversations, I'm converting listings. At the same time, I'm converting buyers. And then the third reason why I love this niche. Now, this just came about, as you guys are all aware, NAR dropped the ball on us on Friday about these new NAR changes coming about. And one of these big changes is, okay, like we got to go out there and get a buyer broker agreement signed up front before we can go out there and show properties. And then within that buyer broker agreement, we have to negotiate what our buyer compensation is, what that buyer is going to have to pay us. And look, it's not that sellers still can't pay commissions, just that co-broke field's going away, all these things that I'm guessing at this point you already know, but where I see the least amount of resistance in the event buyers do need to pay us that representation. So we go out there and find listings, but the seller's like, hell no, I'm not paying a buyer, agent fee. We can't call it a co-broke anymore, I guess, but a buyer agent representation fee. I'm not going to pay that, right? It's up to the buyer to go out there and pay that. In the event that in those situations, this is also the niche where I see the least amount of resistance for that taking place, where buyers are happy to go out there and pay us that representation agreement fee. Now, this has been my favorite niche for a couple years now. So this was my favorite niche way before this NAR stuff. So that component of this is just a theory of mine, because at this point, all this NAR stuff, NAR's fed us, what this is going to entail. But right now, we're all just kind of speculating and theorizing how this is going to shake out and how it's going to play out and whatnot with that. So that's just kind of a icing on the cake, throughout this. Now, I'm going to be breaking down why this is my favorite niche, why it's so damn good for listings, why it's so damn good for buyers, what it is, all of that stuff. But before I do so, look, it's so important right now in this market to be niched down. So if you've been watching or listening to this podcast for a long time, you've been hearing me talk about, okay, we got to be operating like snipers. We don't want to shotgun things out. We need to be operating like snipers through a sniper scope. We are now amongst, and have been for, since about middle of 2022, the most competitive real estate market that any of us have ever seen. Right? When we look at number of active listings, then when you look at number of closed transactions versus number of agent count versus U.S. population, this is the most competitive, crazy freaking real estate landscape that we've ever seen. I mean, we're back to 1995 transaction levels. But then you've got 27% greater population, 3x the agent count. So it's a very competitive climate. Look, 2012 through middle 2022 was the longest bull market in recorded history, longest economic expansion in recorded history, longest real estate expansion in recorded history. That was just easy street. You could just kind of show up, kind of work hard, kind of be consistent, go out there, make multiple six figures. That was easy street. The game has changed. All that low-hanging fruit has dried up. We've got to be very targeted. We got to be very niche down. We got to go out there and make sure that we are maximizing and optimizing conversions with our time. So when I talk about sniper, not strategy, or sniper, not shotgun, what I'm meaning here is identifying. When I'm talking about strategy, identifying he or he, like whom, has the highest probability of needing our services in this market. Things like circle prospect. And this is why so many in our industry, and I have so many reaching out to me, they're like, oh man, I'm doing, I'm working hard. I'm doing all these things, but man, nobody seems to be motivated to go out there and buy and sell. And it's not because they're not motivated people. It's just because they have the wrong strategy. They're shotgunning things. They're not being laser targeted. They're not operating like a sniper. They're shotgunning. And I get on my free coaching calls that I do, and I offer on the podcast, and I'll, offer here at the end of this podcast for you guys too, to take advantage of those. But it's so common that I hear people still circle prospecting. That's people still trying to go out there and build new farms and build new things. Well, look, when you've got 3/4 of homeowners locked in at 4% or lesser rates, like they may want to sell, but the pain of going out there and buying at today's prices, with today's interest rates is much more painful than tolerating the pain of their current living situation. Human behavior is this: if the pain of our current situation doesn't outweigh the pain of the overall change, then we're not going to make that change. That is just human behavior. So turnover rate is so damn low. So we've got to, again, be very niche down, sniper, not shotgun. So hopefully you understand that. Even if you don't want to go after this niche, look, I'll just give you the 5 best niches right now for going out there and stacking listings, because I know that a lot of you want listings out there, especially these NAR changes. I think it's a great way to go out there and hedge our business. Yes, buyer, representation is always going to exist, even when we have our own listings. When we hear comments like, oh yeah, I'm just going to focus on listings and buyer agents are just going to get screwed. Look, buyers still going to need representation. There's still 2 parts of every transaction, right? So it's all still going to need to take place, but with that, okay, I think it's probably a damn good idea to focus and at least have that skill set in to go out there and acquire and be a badass listing agent. And this is a skill set I think you should have had way before these NAR changes came about, for a lot of different reasons. But I think it's also great, with these NAR changes rolling out, that you just have this skill set dialed in. So there's 5 niches right now converting best. Today I'm going to be breaking down my favorite of these 5. But if we look at the 5 niches converting the best to go out there and acquire listings right now, we've got expireds, we got FSBOs, we got divorces, we got absentee owners, and we got pre-foreclosures. These are what's hitting the absolute hardest. Now, my favorite of these is absentee owners. And I'll break down what an absentee owner is and why these are my favorite. But again, and I kind of already alluded to this earlier, it's because I have the ability to go out there and stack a ton of listings, and it's the highest converting one in my experience of all these 5 to go out there and get listings. At the same time, I'm able to go out there and acquire buyers, and I'll walk you through how I do that, through the same niche, through the same activity. So I'm like winning twice. Plus, I'll go through why with these NAR changes, this is going to be the cohort, the niche that's going to have the least resistance, in my opinion, at paying us a buyer representation fee with that. Okay, so before I break these things down, look, if you are an individual agent, if you are a team leader, if you are a brokerage owner, your business is not exactly where you want and need it to be. Look, maybe your business is declining. Maybe it's staying stagnant. Maybe it's growing, just not growing at the pace that you want it to grow at. And you just do not know exactly what you need to do to get from where you're at to where it is that you truly want to be, where you know you should be, where you know you're capable of being. I invite you to schedule a 100% free, 100% zero pressure, 1 hour long Zoom coaching call with me, where we're going to break down where your business is at, where your 12-month goals are, what your long-term goals and visions are for your real estate business, what you're currently doing, what your biggest obstacles are. Then from there, on this coaching call, I'm going to map out exactly what I recommend that you do to get from where you're at to where it is that you want to be in the quickest, most effective, efficient, profitable manner. Now, I'm going to get you dialed in on here, man. The feedback that I get, because at the end of these calls, I'm always asking for feedback. Was this helpful? Was this beneficial? And the most common thing that I get is, yeah, this was absolutely amazing. Got the clarity that I need. This was the best hour I've invested with my time. I've had feedback of, oh, I've been, investing in all these other coaches, in this free 1 hour call with you. I got more value in this free coaching call with you than I have for years of working with these other coaches. So I'm not here to waste your time. I got your back. I will get you dialed in. I promise you that. Now, full disclosure, first 50 minutes, we're going to spend doing all those things that I just discussed, which is plenty enough time. Last 10 minutes, because I like to be very transparent. Last 10 minutes, yes, I'm going to spend a few minutes walking through what some of my advanced coaching program options are. And look, if they're a fit for you, great. If not, that's okay too. We could still be friends. Everything I do is zero pressure. Not going to beg you, not going to hard sell you. Just want to make sure that you have awareness that it's an option for you. And if you want to move forward with it, cool. If not, that's okay too. You have my word. And even if you never move forward with any of my, paid advanced coaching, if all you ever do with me is this free coaching call, I'm going to make this massively powerful, massively beneficial for you. I'm going to get you dialed in to that point where you have exact clarity on what you must do to, again, get from where you're at to where you want to go. So you got nothing to lose, everything to gain. So if you want to schedule that, go to www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call, www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. If you just scroll below wherever you're watching or listening, it's the top link in the comments, or I'm sorry, in the show notes or description, will be a link that you can click to go out there and schedule that. Okay, so let's get back into absentee owner. So what is an absentee owner? Definition of an absentee owner is they own this property. They own this piece of real estate. They own this single family, detached piece of real estate, but they do not reside in it as their primary residence. So there's really going to be 4 buckets that you're going to see thrown in the mix when you're working absentee owners. You're going to have your long-term buy and hold investors. You're going to have your short-term vacation rental owner investors, so like your Airbnb owners as an example. You're going to have, secondary homeowners, like your snowbird secondary homeowners. Maybe they just spend a couple months out of the year there, 3 months out of the year there, but they're not maybe renting it out to others and whatnot, or maybe it's even a combination thereof. And then probates. Once those probates record, somebody passes away, their kids inherit that property, and they're not residing in it. So all four of those are going to get tossed in. Now, depending on your market, depending on your area, for the majority of you, it's going to be made up by the majority is going to be made up of the first two in that category, right? Your long-term buy and holds and your short-term vacation rentals. Okay, so why this is such a great niche right now? Like I talked about earlier, we got to operate like a sniper, not a shotgun. Right. So I talked earlier about pain and pleasure, right? So when people, that this is everything when it comes to sales. I don't care whether you're selling real estate, selling perfume, selling shoes, selling cars, but this is just also not just sales. This is just human behavior. Okay. Until the pain of our current situation, the pain of the status quo outweighs the pain of the change, people will not make the change. So like I said earlier, right? Okay, maybe, I'm living in this house. Maybe I want an extra bedroom. Maybe I no longer like my neighborhood. Maybe I no longer like my subdivision. Maybe I want to, I don't like my commute, whatever. I got some pain going on here. But if the pain at buying at today's prices, with today's interest rates, if that's more painful than staying put, okay, people are going to tolerate the pain that they're in, right? So, but the pain of the current situation needs to outweigh the pain of the change. So right now we need to be very niche down and targeting people that have enough pain with their current situation, the current living situation, that they need to get out of it, right? That pain creates urgency. And if you are getting people that are unmotivated to go out there and buy and sell and that don't seem to have any urgency, it's because you're targeting the wrong people. And this is when you hear me talk about in this podcast all the time of strategy, right? Especially in this market, there's three things: strategy, process, skill set. If you don't have these three things dialed in, you're going to have low conversions. You're going to continue getting punished. So you and your agents must have your skill or your strategy dialed in, which is who you are targeting that has the highest probability of looking to buy or sell. Got to have your process dialed in, which is just how long and how frequent and in which mediums that you're going to follow up with to maximize conversions. And then skill set, which is how good you are at doing the things that you're doing. So how good you are at having those conversations, how good you are at overcoming objections, how good you are at setting appointments and selling the value of the appointment, how good you are on your listing presentations to convert those appointments into clients, right? Because real estate is a two-step sales process. Step number one, we sell the value of the appointment. Step number two, on the appointment, that's where we articulate our value and going for the close, right? Okay, so when we look at pain, right? So we'll, in all four of these kind of subcategories that will apply to absentee owners, they're all in pain. They're all experiencing pain with their current situation, right? So when we look at investors, that's first talk about, long-term buy and holds. Okay, so right now you got tenant evictions up 54% from pre-pandemic levels. So right now you got throughout the country, you got over 30% of all tenants that are behind on rents. When we look at inflation, it is now the most unaffordable time to ever be alive as a U.S. citizen, meaning it is the hardest financial time that anybody's ever experienced that is alive today. So we start breaking that down. Like every time you go to the grocery store, every time you go to eat out, life is getting that much more and that much more expensive. Okay, so they're having a difficult time paying rents. So when you got tenant evictions up 54% from pre-pandemic levels, that means that their landlords are having a more and more challenging and difficult time collecting money from tenants and keeping good tenants in the property. Then from there, at the same time, we got rents coming down, and in certain areas, rents are in free fall, but we got rents coming down. We got what's called cap rate compressions for the first time in multiple decades. And in certain markets like mine, rents are coming down pretty damn fast, right? And again, most areas, this is true for pretty much all areas. Rents are softening and definitely not keeping up with inflation, but okay, my overall countywide rents are down about 8% year over year in my market. Then you look at certain pockets like Scottsdale, where rents are down 17% year over year. So imagine that. Imagine somebody bought a rental property 2 years ago at a 10% cap rate. And that was a good cap rate, right? And then now rents are down 17% and continuing to fall. Like there hasn't been a floor yet. Rents are continuing to fall. Yeah, right. Tenant evictions up, rents are continuing to fall. But then at the same, so what that translates to is revenues coming down. Then from there, okay, now we got hold costs going up. You got taxes going up. You got insurance going up. You got HOAs in some cases going up. You got cost of maintenance going up. So it's like, okay, revenues coming down, hold costs going up. So if they want to sell at or close to peak pricing, do so before they get into a negative, cash flow territory, before things get too ugly. Now is the opportune time to do that. Okay, now we look at your short-term vacation rentals, like your Airbnbs. Okay, 50% of these that were acquired throughout the U.S., So over half of every single STR, short-term rental, that exists out there was acquired post-COVID. It became this big fad thing, right? So they all bought wrong, right? They bought peak pricing in 2021, 2022, which means, okay, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to flip that into a long-term buy and hold and have the numbers pencil out. They bought when occupancy rates were 70, 75%. Now with the economy in the freaking shitter, right? You got domestic travel falling off of a cliff. So again, revenue's coming way down, whole costs going way up. But then if we look at, okay, even snowbirds, right? You got a record number. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but you got a record number of 401k hardship withdrawals right now. So you got a record number of people having to, incur huge penalties because, dude, a lot of these retirees cannot afford life. You got a lot of retirees having to re-enter the workplace now. You got a lot of retirees because every time you go to the grocery store, every time, like, we all see the cost of life going up and up and up. So when you're on a fixed income that you spent your whole life planning for, and then now all of a sudden life is double as expensive as it was, prior, in a quick ass amount of time. Yeah, right. Well, a lot of people are having to abandon that, two home lifestyle and whatnot there. Okay, so that's the pain on the listing side. Now, here's why I love this niche. Again, it's where I see. So like I'm at an 8% conversational listing taken rate, which that translates into very damn high, right? So this is way better than any, inbound Google pay-per-click or Facebook ads. Like, these conversions are fantastic for going out there and getting listings, right? One of the other reasons that I like it, it's not nearly as saturated as going after expireds or FSBOs where you got 50, 60, 70 other agents attacking these, right? Now I like those too, right? So I mean, I'm doing all 5 of these niches within my own internal team, but this is my favorite out of the 5. So like, okay, if I was in my market and I wanted to go out there and list 100 homes a year as an agent and maybe with one assistant in my market, because my market's big enough, like, this would be my niche that I'd just be targeting on and going, if you want to list a property a week, right? Like, this would be that niche I would be targeting and going hard on, right? Now, all of you might not have enough absentee owners in your market to hit 100 listings a year. In my market, if you're in a big market like Phoenix, okay, yeah, there's easily more than enough. Okay, so, it's one of the highest converting, if not the highest converting, and in my experience, the highest converting listing niche right now to go out there and acquire listings. Then from there, the other reason why I love this when it comes to the listing side is from an efficiency standpoint. Okay, they're not living in the properties. A lot of times they're not living in the area. A lot of times they're not even living in the state. So most of my listing presentations are over Zoom or over the phone. So it's a lot more efficient. It also allows me to expand my market territory because, like, normally, okay, if this property is 2 hours away and I got to go visit for a traditional listing presentation and all of that, well, from a time consumption, time efficiency standpoint, usually wouldn't make sense for me to go all the way over there. Well, now I don't care where they're at. As long as it's in my MLS, as long as I can get my vendors out there to do photos, whatever, and I'm able to service that and list that, okay, like, expands my market territory. So then from there, okay, I said earlier, 8% conversational listing taken rate. Now these 92% that say something like, oh, no, property's performing great, no interest in selling. Right now, okay, I'm able to transition that conversation into a buy-side conversation with something like, oh, yeah, hey, no worries at all. I'm so glad to hear the property's performing great for you. Hey, real quick, before I let you go, just out of curiosity, I mean, if I could find you other investment properties that are performing as good, if not better than this one, would you have possible interest in adding additional properties to your portfolio? And if so, would it be okay with you if I emailed you any great deals I find? Any decently savvy, sophisticated investor is going to say yes to that. So now I'm stacking up my investor buy base area of my business. So now I'm getting listings. So to me, I look at this, dude, it's a win-win. Whether they say yes or no, it is a win-win. Yeah, right. And then from there, I take it a step further with, because again, the majority of these investors, and I love working with investors. I also love working with traditional buyers and sellers, but I just really like investors, right? When you look at investors, okay, you get a great investor. They might buy 20 units a year, every single year consistently for you. So it increases, velocity of transactions, per year per client, right? So, it could have a great niche. And then if you look at the investor growth, we are becoming a renters nation. When you look at institutional investors and, I mean, there's predictions out there, and there's, recent article within the last year from RFK Jr. coming out saying, look, there is a chance that investors could own 60% of residential real estate throughout the U.S. by 2030. And I don't know if those numbers are true, and I'm not going to get into that, right? All I know is, okay, they keep buying up more shit. Yeah, right? So, okay, you got that demand on the buyer side, right? And then also right now we're in a situation where because of, revenues going down and whole costs going up, You got demand on the list side as well. Now, when it comes to NAR, okay, so I'll tell you a story here. So back in the great financial crisis, my market just gets hammered, free fall. Next thing you know, I got all these investors coming in, buying homes at 30, 40 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on the dollar, whatever. So I'm out there getting these investors and helping them buy these $30,000, $40,000 properties. Just, just swallowing these things up. Well, when you calculate, okay, at that time, let's just say average co-broke paid to a buyer's agent was 3%. I'm like, look, dude, I'm going broke. I can't continue doing this. I'm making no money, and I'm having to work all day long to go out there and get these investors all these $40,000 units. So I go to all my investor clients. I'm like, look, I can't continue doing this. I'm going to have to charge you a minimum commission fee of X. Right, for me to make this worthwhile. I had 0 investors give 2 shits about that. I had 0 investors bat an eye at that. Their attitude was, hey, yeah, 100%. Go out there and, whatever you need to pay yourself to make it worthwhile, fine. Right? As long as the property meets our buy box, and as long as our numbers pencil out, and as long as you're able to negotiate, and you factor in what your fee is into that deal and what those terms are, because they don't care how that money's split up. They don't care if some goes to seller, some goes to me. They don't care. Right? They're just like, hey, our numbers need to hit, and then pay yourself whatever, as long as our numbers match, because to them, it is just a numbers game. So when we look at with these NAR rules, okay, certain buyers, like, okay, if a VA buyer, okay, VAs can't pay, commission. It's got to come from the seller. So then, but look at, okay, let's just say it's a first-time buyer. They're going FHA. They barely have enough for their down payment. There's no way they can afford your fee. Then from there, based on, what the concessions are that's allowed and that's offered, like you might get an instance where you're having to work for free, with certain clients, or just not represent those clients because they can't afford it. Right. And then you got that subset of the consumer that's going to sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to pay you $6,000, or I'm not going to pay you $10,000, or whatever your fee is to go out there and, find them the property and represent them. They're like, I'll just go to the listing agent, waive my representation, and not have to pay that fee. When it comes to investors, they need us to go out there and find them these deals and negotiate these deals, and they don't give 2 shits about what that fee is. Now, that is, again, this is just from my personal experience and kind of a theory of how, this might possibly play out, these NAR stuff. None of us know about this. I know we're all creating content. There's a bunch of content out there about this NAR stuff. Now, we know some, but right now we're all kind of theorizing. I mean, I've spent, I don't know, 4 hours with my agents now between, Zoom trainings and in-person trainings already since all of this, of mapping out how we're going to plan this out. What does this mean for open houses? When you got to have a buyer broker agreement signed before you can show any single property with commissions, added, or with our commission pre-negotiated on that buyer broker before we ever showed them a property and step foot in that property. Well, how does that impact things like open houses? Okay, how's that going to impact us with, within my team, we have a, Zillow Flex department. Okay, well, all those, Zillow Flex leads, right now the protocol has been, okay, we take the call within 30 seconds out of our mouth. We're scheduling that showing, go meet with them at that showing, develop that rapport. Then we do the buyer consultation, convert those, and it's very high converting. Well, now that's going to be disrupted. How are we going to position for that? How are we going to, so right now, we're theorizing and trying to, plan the best that we can to be prepared for these changes, but just from my personal experience, again, investors don't give a shit. Yeah. Right. They're willing to pay you whatever you believe is fair to be compensated. I've had investors tell me, dude, make as much as you want to make. If you want to pay yourself, 20, 30 G's, I don't care. As long as my numbers pencil out, like they want, they're fine with a win-win. They just need meets their buy box, their numbers pencil out, boom, they are good to go. All right, so this is why this is my favorite niche for this overall market. And again, this is my favorite niche for the last almost 2 years now, since the market transitioned and the dynamics changed within the market. So way before these NAR, stuff came about, but now that's just icing on the cake. All right, so I'm going to end it with you again here with this. I know I said this earlier, but look, if you need help getting your business dialed and you don't know what the best strategy is for you, you need help putting together that plan to get from where you're at to where you want to go, I invite you to, again, schedule a 100% free, zero pressure Zoom coaching call with me personally. You can do that at www.gsdmode.com/Zoom call. Or if you just scroll below into the description or the call, our description or show notes, I know it's called different things at different platforms. The top link will be a link to do that. When you schedule that, there's a really important video to watch. It's a quick video, but it'll help you prep for this call so we can maximize and get the most out of this call. All right, guys, keep crushing it, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.